I'm Ashley Michaels, and this is Colorado Point of View. It's been nearly a week since Donald Trump was sworn in as the 47th president of the United States. On day one, he executed more than 200 executive actions dealing with everything from TikTok to climate treaties. But here in Colorado, local leaders are focusing on the president's new immigration policies. President Trump has threatened to cut funding to sanctuary cities, and the Department of Justice has also threatened to investigate and prosecute local officials who don't comply with federal policies. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston says he believes the city of Denver is already compliant.
We think we want to be both a welcoming city and a city that serves all of our residents. We're not going to be sort of bullied or blackmailed into changing our policies, but we think our policies serve everyone well right now because we don't ask your status if we stop you for running a red light, but also if we have someone in custody that ICE is looking for, they can reach out to us and we can release them to them when they're getting released from our jails.
Well, he also released a 4-point plan to handle mass deportations, which includes helping deport violent criminals, but also protecting schools, hospitals, and churches from ICE raids. All right, so let's bring our analysts in. They're already here with us. We have, as always, Democratic strategist and senior presidential and gubernatorial advisor Andy Boyan, and Republican strategist and director of the Advanced Colorado Institute, Michael Fields. Thank you both for being here. All right, so let's start with Denver, the topic of Denver. Andy, I want to hear from you first. Is this a good response from Mayor Mike Johnston, or does this put Denver and the mayor at risk of getting in trouble under these new policies?
No, it doesn't. I mean, this is the standard policy of Denver. It has been for years, for decades it has been. We're a sanctuary city. As long as we are, the mayor's following the sanctuary city guidelines and what we've talked about with regard to sanctuary cities. What he has said and what is different, which I think is right, is that I don't think there's anybody in the United States that isn't for deporting criminals, particularly violent criminals that are here illegally. And what the mayor is saying is, obviously, if we have them in custody and ICE is looking for them, we'll release them to him. And that isn't also a different pattern than what we've always followed as well. So I think the mayor is being consistent. He's being obviously compliant with what's going on with the new administration, but he's also following federal law and state law when it comes to how this works. There are laws in place, by the way, that don't allow municipalities and to be bullied by the federal government. So in my opinion right now, I think the federal government has the opportunity to work with us in this process and make sure that we're solving the same issue, which we all want solved.
Michael, I want to hear from you on this. Your response to Johnston's new plan.
Yeah, I think there's clear backtracking going on from both Mayor Johnston and Governor Polis in his State of the State address. Polis had just signed several bills over the last few years that made it harder to work with federal law enforcement when it comes to illegal immigration. And, Andy said, it's kind of common sense that violent criminals should be deported. That's not been common sense by Democrats in the state and across the country. And so I do think you have to make it mandatory that localities, including Denver, work with federal authorities when it comes to violent criminals, when it comes to repeat offenders. I think the law is at least unclear about it, if not preventing that from happening. And so this is kind of up to, does Mayor Johnston and Governor Polis want to do this or not? That's not how it should be. It should be mandatory. So I think we need to do more. I do think that you see the backtracking going on because immigration is such a big issue. It's such a big problem. We have Venezuelan gangs. We have all these different issues. Now they're trying to have it both ways.
Okay, so in the past, ICE was not supposed to go into what's called sensitive spaces like churches, schools, hospitals to make arrests. Well, Trump just did away with that, but Denver Public Schools is now telling its principals, quote, do not allow entry into the building unless they have a warrant. I want to hear from both of you. How significant is this change? Are we going to see some tension here in our community because of this? Michael?
I don't think that you are. I think that you've seen already ICE starting to make some of these busts in other areas, and it is for criminals. It is for gang members. I mean, you're going after kind of the worst of the worst. This isn't going and trying to tear families out of schools and that kind of thing. So I think, that it's not going to be that big of a change. But the administration is putting more resources into going after the people that should be deported, that people want to be deported. So I don't think it's a huge policy change that you're going to see.
Andy, you want to weigh in on this one?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there is no substantive change here at all. And I think, given the limited resources the Fed has regarding ICE specifically, I think schools, churches, safe places are probably the last place they're going to look for illegal immigrants.
Now, a minute ago, Michael brought up some of these state laws. Let's talk a little bit more about them because it's not just Denver. This immigration issue is a statewide topic, too. And this week, 3 members of Congress from Colorado wrote a letter to Governor Polis asking him to change some state laws. Here's what Congressman Gabe Evans had to say.
When there's barriers that are put in place by either the mayor of Denver or by the state of Colorado, because Colorado does have a panel of sanctuary state laws that make it illegal or very difficult for state and local law enforcement to work with federal authorities. As a local police officer, I saw the impact that had on a day-to-day basis, prohibiting me at times from being able to actually work with federal authorities to get these folks out of our community who were there illegally and causing other problems.
So my question is this unusual to have members of Congress meddling in state laws, trying to change state laws, or are these ideas that maybe he should be bringing up at the federal level?
Yeah, I think that he should be talking about it because, they wrote a letter to Governor Polis saying get rid of these laws. These are the ones that I was mentioning. They were passed in 2019, 2021, 2023, made it harder for state and local officials to work with federal authorities. The reason it matters is, one, he was a legislator just last year, but two, it is one of those crossover issues where you're dealing with coordination between federal and state government. It impacts both things. So I'm glad that he and other members of Congress took the lead to bring this up. I think if the legislature doesn't fix it, if the governor doesn't fix it, that you're going to see some ballot measures on either the Denver ballot, on the state ballot to deal with this, because it is a big issue. It's very popular, what we're talking about, getting rid of violent criminals. But I think the law actually prevents that work from happening. They didn't know it in 2019 that this is what would happen, but here we are. And if they don't repeal it, then the people will.
Yeah, Andy, your thoughts on this coming from three of the four congressional members on the Republican side?
Well, I think it is unusual for congressmen and women, particularly new congressmen and women, to come back to the state and ask the governor to rid laws in Colorado. But I would say also that Jared Polis isn't going to do anything like that when he's threatened by members of Congress or asked by members of Congress. It would be administrative change for the governor to make this, and also it would come from the administration, not three members of Congress from the other party that's saying do this, do this, do this. And also, Gabe Evans is a brand new legislator. Yes, he was a cop, served his country, obviously, but he also is looking to make a name for himself, and so he's out front on this issue, which makes sense. And politically, if you're looking at something to challenge immigration, which is the number one issue for the president, it would be smart for Gabe Evans to come out politically, but Jared Polis isn't going to move on a Gabe Evans letter or a Lauren Boebert letter on any of this.
Okay, so let's take a step back. We've talked about how this affects local, state issues, federal issues. I want to talk about the overall picture of what has happened in politics this week. We only have a couple of minutes left, so we can't address everything that has happened. But I do want to ask, what are some of your key takeaways from the last few days of Trump's first week in office? Michael, we'll start with you.
So we obviously saw a flurry of executive orders. The administration kind of hit the ground running. They didn't, go on vacation to the Gulf of America. They really went hard after some issues, including immigration. There was a lot of executive orders about that. You see some of these confirmation hearings happening, Rubio getting confirmed, for example. I think, we've talked about a few of these things in the past, but energy production, allowing some of those regulations to go down to produce more energy here. I think the hiring freeze for federal positions was big. And then even stuff that will get more attention, like TikTok and that, being delayed 75 days under the administration, which is, again, big for a certain group of people in the country, younger people. So I think there's a lot of things that happen in the first week, and I think you're going to see a lot of this continue. How do you lower the costs of living? How do you make sure that immigration gets under control? I think those are the focus, and that's what it's been so far.
Andy, what are your key takeaways from this last week?
Sure. Well, in the first days, he signed 28 executive orders, 12 legally binding memoranda, and 4 presidential proclamations. He signed immigration policy, energy and environmental policy, the DEI and transgender work that he did, which obviously is going to come under specific scrutiny. And then the January 6th, obviously, pardons and those are really probably some of the most controversial things he's done. And so I would say, he did hit the ground running, and he did do things that he said he'd do on day one. He's done a lot of things, obviously, that we were surprised by, and he's done a lot, of talking about things, but hasn't done anything about some other things that he said he'd do on his first day or first week. So a lot going on, but I think, probably he's going to face a lot of legal challenges on some things, particularly the judge just blocking now birthright citizenship, which I think is significant. And then also the January 6th pardons are going to continue to give him bad press. If you watch television news right now, there is some significant blowback on this, including the Oath Keeper saying he doesn't regret anything, and then obviously one of the January 6th leaders just being arrested this morning on a weapons charge. So there's more to come in there as well.
Real quickly, do you think we are going to see Trump head back to the Supreme Court about the birthright citizenship?
I do, very much. And I think that's what he wanted. I think Trump expected this, and I think that he wants to make this a Supreme Court issue for sure.
Michael?
I think it probably does, but it's going to lose. I mean, there's 125 years of precedent precedent on this, and I think it goes down.
All right. Thank you both for the conversation, as always. Coming up after the break, Colorado Congressman Jason Crow going to be joining us from Washington, D.C. We'll talk more about immigration and also the work ahead for him in Congress. Welcome back. On Wednesday, the Department of Defense announced 1,500 active duty soldiers and Marines will deploy to the southern U.S. border to beef up security. Right now, the assignment does not include law enforcement duties for them, but the Associated Press said if that changes, it would be a, quote, dramatic new role not done in recent history. Joining us from Washington, D.C. to talk about that and a whole lot more, we have Colorado Democratic Congressman Jason Crow. Thanks for being here. Always appreciate your time. I know you're busy out there in D.C., so let's jump right into it. Now, you served in the military. You're also a big part of a congressional caucus focused on the military. So I want to get your take. What do you make of this plan to send active duty U.S. service members to the southern border?
Well, I think it would be a misuse of our military. You know, our young men and women, some of the best our country has to offer, join the military to serve their country, to protect us against our adversaries, to serve overseas. They certainly don't join to do border security. So I think it's a misuse of our money. I think it's a misuse of our valuable men and women who step up to do great things for our country against our adversaries. And I think it's also the wrong way to approach the border issue. You know, we know that border security is achievable if we work in a bipartisan way to reform our immigration system, to actually allocate money wisely for a strong and secure border, which there is substantial bipartisan support here for. But to send thousands of soldiers and other assets down to the border is just the wrong move.
Let's stick on the topic of immigration here. So we talked with our analyst just a few minutes ago about federal immigration officers now being allowed to go into places like schools and churches to make arrests. A large population of immigrants do live in the district here in Colorado that you represent. What's your message to those people that are in your district right now?
Well, my message is that I hear your concerns, your fears, your anxieties. You know, I am very proud of the fact that I represent one of the most diverse districts and communities in the country, where nearly 20% of my constituents were born outside of the United States. So you have 130 languages spoken in Aurora and surrounding communities. And we know that is a source of strength and vibrancy. We are stronger and more vibrant. These are my neighbors. They're our business owners. They're my kids' friends. They go to school. They live. They work. They pay taxes in our community. So, you know, I will make sure that I protect families and protect children. Well, at the same time, I do what everybody wants to have done, and that is protect our community. If there are violent offenders out there, that is already against the law, by all means, we should be enforcing laws against violent offenders and keeping our community safe. Nobody refutes that. But targeting children and families is something I will always fiercely resist.
Now, there are a lot of people in your district who are happy to see a crackdown on illegal immigration. You just brought it up yourself that nobody wants to see violent criminals. I want to give you a chance to answer more specifically. What ideas are you either bringing to the table or pushing to get those violent criminals who are in the U.S. illegally out of our Colorado communities?
Well, I have voted for bills that enhance resources for immigration enforcement against violent criminals, right? Because nobody ever refutes that. I've never refuted that. And you know, frankly, it's a straw man argument. It's this fake argument that folks have concocted that somehow we need to have mass deportations in order to target violent criminals. No, we actually have services that know how to do this. We do have to resource them better. And in fact, there was a bipartisan immigration bill that came before Congress that was originated in the Senate, and it was James Lankford and Chris Murphy that for about a year negotiated this bipartisan bill that actually would have added officers to our immigration system and increased enforcement assets and additional money for that. And that bill was actually tanked by Donald Trump and his allies when they decided that they would rather run on the problem during the campaign season and have the problem remain for purposes of politics than actually resource this. So we actually know how to do it. We had a bipartisan effort that we could have voted on had it not been tanked by Donald Trump last year. So let's bring that effort back up. Let's have a bipartisan effort here to fix this problem once and for all.
Before we move on from the topic of immigration, I want to ask you about the new Congress that you're a part of right now. Just sent its first bill to the president's desk this week. It's the Laken Riley Act, which requires undocumented immigrants accused of certain crimes to be detained. You voted against this. Can you walk us through your decision to vote no on this?
Yeah, simply because it's a violation of due process rights. Like I just said very clearly, and I've been very consistent about this, that, if there are violent offenders, the law already allows for detention and deportation of those. So we have to make sure we give resources to law enforcement, federal law enforcement, to enforce those adequately. But the fact that we were going to pass a law that says that it can detain without due process people who they think might be illegal aliens, and then deport those folks, that is just antithetical to our community values. It's antithetical to Colorado values. It's un-American. And the opportunity for abuse in that system, just think about that, right? That we would grant authority to people to just detain someone who they think might be an illegal alien and then just automatically deport them is just ripe for abuse. And I can just see that if they put this into effect, that a way it could tear apart families, it could be used against children, it could be used against all manner of folks who simply want a pathway to citizenship and want to build lives here.
I want to ask you about the January 6th pardons. You've been very vocal on social media against the president's executive orders to pardon January 6th convictions. We did hear from a Coloradan this week who says he made a mistake on January 6th. He regrets what he did. Does a guy like that not deserve a second chance in your eyes?
Sure, I always believe in redemption and second chances, but I also believe in rule and law and that actions have consequences. And if you beat police officers, if you break down the doors of the U.S. Capitol, if you threaten the lives of me and my colleagues, if you try to stop the certification of a lawful election, over 150 police officers were brutally beaten. You've seen the footage. Coloradans have seen the footage. I'm not making it up. It was a brutal and awful day. And several of those officers later lost their lives because of the injuries and the trauma that was incurred on that day. We can't let that go without consequences. And by the way, hundreds of those who were pardoned just the other day actually confessed to these crimes and pled guilty to them. And many of them have said they would do it all over again and have doubled down on this rhetoric. So these are violent criminals who are now walking our streets because of Donald Trump's blanket pardon, and we're all less safe as a result of it.
I want to talk more quickly about what you are working on in the next couple of years ahead. So we know you've been selected once again to serve on the House Intelligence Committee. You served there for the last 4 years. Now we've got a change in the White House. Is your work there going to be any different, or what are your goals when it comes to your assignment?
Well, my primary goal is to represent my district, right? That is my fundamental responsibility. The job title is representative, so making sure I'm bringing money, infrastructure money, grants, federal money to the district, that I'm addressing the cost of living, reducing the cost of housing, bringing transportation improvement projects to the district so that our commutes are better, our communications and our water systems are better. That's something that I've had a lot of success doing over the years. I'm going to continue that success of making sure I'm advocating for the 6th District of Colorado and Colorado overall. And then, I'm a combat veteran, so veterans issues are something that are very near and dear to my heart, making sure that we reform the VA, that we expedite VA health care and claims processing. But I also have a bill, a bipartisan effort that will go to veteran suicide, so making sure that we're doing right by our veterans is very important to me, and that we have a strong national defense. We are a military state in so many ways. We have numerous military facilities. Buckley Space Force Base is headquartered in Aurora in my district, so making sure that we keep Space Command in Colorado, making sure that we follow through on pay raises for our junior enlisted troops are things that will impact all of my constituents.
All right, my last question. This is a little bit of a curveball, but here on Colorado Point of View, we've been talking a lot about the 2026 election for governor of Colorado. And the last couple of weeks, your name has come up in the conversation on this show. I know you have not been a part of that conversation. So I have to ask, are you eyeing a run for governor?
I am just laser focused on representing my district right now, making sure that my constituents are taken care of, that I'm protecting my community against the worst impulses of this administration, but working with them when and where I can. You know, I've always just believed in duty first and service first, and making sure that I maintain my oath. So that is my focus right now.
Congressman Crow, we always appreciate your time. Thank you for being here and sharing your Colorado point of view.
Thanks, Ashley.
A federal judge has temporarily blocked President Trump's executive order that ends birthright citizenship. Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser is one of more than 20 attorneys general in the lawsuit against that order. Political reporter Gabrielle Franklin has more.
Yeah, most of the efforts that we've seen calling for changes to immigration law have come from the national level. New today, 3 of Colorado's congressional members are now asking Governor Jared Polis to make that change at the state level.
Colorado has been and will always be an advocate and a leader in driving policies that create safer, stronger communities.
Immigrants and allies from Black and Latino communities joined state lawmakers in sharing their personal stories of immigration. Following President Trump's new executive order surrounding immigration, Colorado lawmakers say they're looking into how the state can respond.
We're in the process of reviewing those executive orders currently, and let us be clear, we've already ensured that local law enforcement should be following state law and not doing ICE's job for them.
Some members of Congress are asking Governor Jared Polis to repeal 3 of Colorado's state immigration laws that limit how local law enforcement agencies interact with federal immigration authorities.
Colorado does have a panel of sanctuary state laws that make it illegal or very difficult for state and local law enforcement to work with federal authorities. As a local police officer, I saw the impact that had on a day-to-day basis, prohibiting me at times from being able to actually work with federal authorities to get these folks out of our community who were there illegally and causing other problems.
Governor Polis's office says they are reviewing the letter. State lawmakers at today's event say they hadn't seen the letter beforehand, but they hope the governor will help protect community members.
Immigration law is federal law, right? Yeah. We'll do what we can to protect our communities. That's what we do, and that's the mandate that we've been given from the people of our community.
Gabrielle Franklin, Colorado Point of View.
All right, we will see you right back here next week.